to be a part of the blockchain boom. Saturday on CNA.
So little land with so many mouths to feed.
Land matters. The future is going to be really challenging.
Dan akhirnya dibuang seperti ini dengan mubazir sangat disayangkan sekali.
Ini adalah solusinya.
We can turn Singapore into a protein powerhouse overnight, but people don't understand what we're doing.
Women farmers are the solution for the food security problem.
Race to Feed the World, Monday on CNA.
In business news, Australia is seeking to move ahead with its case against heavy Chinese tariffs on barley imports. It plans to ask the World Trade Organization to establish a dispute settlement panel to look at the case and declare China's move illegal. This is the next step in the WTO's dispute resolution process. Australia launched a formal appeal to the WTO late last year on the matter. It says China's decision to slap an 80% tax on barley imports had effectively halted bilateral trade in the grain. But China is arguing that Australian farmers produce barley with government subsidies and sell it below cost, and that's unfair to Chinese barley farmers. Australia's barley exports to China have been worth about $1 billion a year. Barley is used in beer production and in animal feed. This bilateral dispute is just one in a long list of political-tinged trade disputes between the two countries. At least 13 Australian sectors have been subjected to Chinese tariffs or some form of disruption. This includes beef, coal, and wine. The U.S. Senate has advanced a sweeping package of legislation aimed to boost the country's ability to compete with Chinese technology. It includes about $190 billion for provisions to strengthen U.S. technology in general and $54 billion to raise production of semiconductors, microchips, and telecom equipment. If it passes both houses of Congress, it will be sent to U.S. President Biden to sign it into law. He's set to unveil a $6 trillion budget later today. In a speech in Ohio, President Biden made it clear once again that he wants to sharpen U.S. competitiveness against China and across the globe.
We must be number one in the world to lead the world in the 21st century. It's a simple proposition. And the starting gun has already gone off. We can't afford to fall any further behind. Now's the time to build the foundation that we've laid.
Indonesia's government reportedly intends to propose a sunset policy to encourage the declaration of unreported assets. This is similar to a previous tax amnesty program, but with a much higher penalty rate. It will also come with an incentive to invest in government bonds. The government hopes the plan will improve tax compliance in the world's fourth most populous country, which has 270 million people. As just 15% of them are registered as taxpayers, and of these, just 3% or 12 million people file tax returns. Penalty rates for the so-called sunset policy are expected to range between 12.5% and 30% of asset value. And those found with undeclared assets thereafter will be further penalized. The previous amnesty, launched in President Joko Widodo's first term, was regarded as among the most successful in the world after uncovering assets worth $330 billion. However, the program attracted less than 1 million taxpayers. Japan's unemployment rate crept up to 2.8% in April from 2.6% in the previous month. That's slightly worse than analysts' expectations as the prolonged battle with COVID-19 continues. Economists say the data also reflects a current mismatch in the supply and demand for labor in the Japanese economy. Recent purchasing managers' data have been pointing to a tightening labor market. Latest jobs to applicants ratio was at 1.09, slightly lower than the previous months on the back of a labor market friction. Looking ahead, Japan is expected to post a higher jobless rate this month as the extension of virus emergency measures in Tokyo and Osaka weigh on jobs demand, particularly in the services sector. Well, one counter that made its debut in Hong Kong today is JD Logistics, the delivery arm of JD.com. The counter jumped right from the opening at 46 Hong Kong dollars and 5 cents, or 14% higher than its IPO price, and that will give the Chinese delivery and warehousing firm a stock market value of some $36 billion. Now, it jumped by as much as 18% before paring most of those gains, finally closing some 3% higher. The IPO was more than 700 times subscribed by retail investors. The institutional offer was about 11 times subscribed. Shares were priced at $40.36 apiece and raising some $3.2 billion, making this the second largest IPO in Hong Kong this year. But remember, JD Logistics is facing fierce competition in the express delivery sector as more participants edge into the market. Its Q1 earnings fell nearly 73% compared to a year ago, and it's expected to record a significant adjusted loss this year. The listing comes at a time when Chinese authorities are tightening regulations on fintech companies and targeting tech giants with stricter anti-monopoly rules. Losses are mounting for China's food delivery giant Meituan. The Tencent-backed company posted a second straight quarter of losses, weighed down by its expansion into community group buying. Group buying is a heavily subsidized business. Losses in the first quarter came to $762 million, worse than the same period a year ago when its business was hit by the coronavirus curbs. It's not all bad news, though. Total revenue, including other services such as ride-hailing and bike-sharing, beat analyst estimates, jumping 121% on year to $5.8 billion. And that's it for business. Back to you, Telly. Thanks very much.
Authorities have notified a social media platform, MeWe, to remove an offending poll that ranks women asatizas or religious teachers based on their sexual attractiveness. The Infocom Media Development Authority says the content has breached the Internet Code of Practice as it constitutes prohibited material. Well, IMDA has also contacted other major social media players to ensure the poll is not circulated. Singapore Minister of Communications and Information, Josephine Teo, says she is appalled by the poll. Mrs. Teo, who is also chairman of the People's Action Party Women's Wing, has condemned the poll in the strongest terms. She says this is a deliberate exercise to demean women, especially those who have dedicated themselves to upholding their faith. The minister also says MCI will continue its work to protect women and girls from online harm. MCI Parliamentary Secretary Rahayu Mazam deeply appreciates the clear stance that IMDA has taken on the issue. She says that such disrespectful content about women asatizas has no place in society. She says the ministry is working on a Singapore Together Alliance for Action against online harms targeting women and girls. Discussions led by the AFA group have highlighted the importance of cultivating a culture of respect for Singaporean women, both online and offline. She says behaviours perpetuating sexual harassment must be condemned, and she hopes all Singaporeans, both men and women, will work towards a safer and more responsible online culture here and with mutual respect for all. Still to come, jailed Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai handed a new prison sentence. Plus, climate scientists weigh in on why India was slammed by almost back-to-back catastrophic cyclones.
Bearing the brunt of worsening global warming.
As we see the whole landscape changing, it is really impacting our way of life.
Can we reduce our carbon footprint to fight climate change?
We're doing our bit to not rely so much on the coal-fired power stations to power what we do in our house.
Are the steps we're taking really enough? CNA correspondent fighting climate change. Tonight on CNA.
ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。嬉しさってオンとオフあります？俺全部いつもオフかな。
こうやってなるんだ。何
Japan Hour, Saturday on